Welcome to Treadmill Talks with Shannon Maves, a podcast for athletes and fitness enthusiasts to pass the time during mind-numbing cardio while I use my no-bullshit coaching style to educate, inspire, and entertain. I'm your host, Shannon Maves. Now let's walk and talk. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Treadmill Talks, the one about plateaus. Whether you're trying to improve your strength and performance in the gym, on a mission to lose weight or improve body composition, or any combination of those things, it can be extremely frustrating when progress suddenly comes to a halt, which is what we refer to as a plateau. Oftentimes, people think these plateaus are something completely unexplainable. They don't understand why something that had previously been working so well in the past has suddenly just stopped working. Or they'll keep pushing to do more, thinking that that's the solution to continue making progress. And then they don't understand why their body still isn't responding. But if we take a moment to step back and look at the big picture, we can usually figure out some type of way to break past a plateau in order to continue to make progress. Sometimes it's a fairly obvious solution. Other times it does require a bit more digging. Either way, there is almost always a strategy that can be applied to get the needle moving in the right direction again. But it's important to understand and accept that just because something worked for you in the past does not mean that it is necessarily going to work for you again today. Now, the first type of plateau that I want to explain is a training plateau. This is when you've been doing some form of exercise for a while and you've been improving, but all of a sudden you just cannot make progress anymore. And since I'm primarily a physique and bodybuilding coach, I am going to be more specific with this type of plateau as it pertains to resistance training. Although this same general idea applies to other forms of exercise as well. But let's say that you are training in the gym and you're working to improve on your squats. You've been steadily increasing weight each time, but you eventually hit a point where you're just like, yeah, no, I can't do any more weight than this. The first thing that I'm going to suggest you do is go back and listen to the episode that I released just before this one, the one about progressive overload. I would almost guarantee that if you were to implement some of the things that I discuss in that episode, you will be able to move along and continue to make progress. But maybe not. Maybe you've tried all of the methods that I mentioned and you are still just stuck. In that case, the first thing I would do is ask, how long have you actually been stuck for? Because there are ebbs and flows with training, and you aren't going to hit a PR every single time you lift, especially once you start to become more advanced with lifting. In last week's episode, I mentioned that progress in the gym is not linear, but rather logarithmic, meaning that progress slows over time. When you first start lifting, strength can increase very quickly. But over time, this rate of progress does start to slow down. And some days, or even some weeks, it might be at a standstill. Hell, sometimes you might even need to back off on weight because you're not as strong as you were the week before. That's okay. As long as you keep showing up and remain consistent, you will continue to make progress. But if it's been a few weeks of no progress at all, then we can try some other methods. Try training to failure once in a while. Perform some AMRAPs, which is an acronym for as many repetitions as possible. You might be surprised to find out that you were stopping at like 6 or 8 reps when you were actually capable of like 10 or 12 reps. Our minds are almost always going to give up on us far sooner than our body actually does. So performing a set until failure once in a while can be a great method to figure out if you're truly pushing yourself hard enough or not. You could also try some pyramid or ladder sets where you increase or decrease the weight with each set. Try adding resistance bands to a lift to help break through a sticking point. Partial repetitions can be helpful for that too. And honestly, sometimes something as simple as just mixing up the order of your workouts once in a while can help to keep things moving in the right direction. I'm a big fan of starting with the heavier, more compound movements at the beginning of a workout when your energy stores are higher, and then incorporating more isolation and accessory movements towards the end of your workout. But sometimes switching up that order and training smaller muscle groups before hitting your big lifts can actually help to kind of activate those muscles. Or, depending on your approach, it can work to fatigue those muscles so that they have to push even harder during your bigger lifts. But let's say that you've tried all of this shit and you're still stuck. Then my next question is going to be, when the fuck did you take your last deload? Because chances are your body has stopped responding because it is screaming at you for a break if you've tried all of that stuff. And rest is an essential part of the process. You have to give your muscles time to recover in order to make progress. If we think about this on kind of a smaller scale, imagine going to the gym after a great night's sleep versus going to the gym after a shitty night's sleep. You're probably going to have a much better training session after a good sleep than you would if you tried to train when you were exhausted. Well, sometimes our muscles are more exhausted than we realize, especially if we are someone who trains frequently, because our threshold for pain in the gym can become fairly high. So, taking a few days or even a full week once in a while to ease off on training or even take completely off from training can give our body the rest it needs to hit it hard again. And a lot of times you may find that after a short break, you get back into the gym feeling like a fucking beast again. But okay, let's say that you've tried all of the progressive overload. You've tried different training methods and mixing up the order, and you've taken some extra rest. Then I would say it's about damn time to look at your nutrition. If you've been in a deficit for a long ass time, you might be due for a solid refeed. Or it could even be time to come out of a deficit and start a reverse diet. I know that if the goal is fat loss, a reverse diet can seem counterintuitive because you still want to lose weight, but food is quite literally fuel. And you need that fuel to be able to push harder in the gym. So sometimes by increasing food, even just a little bit, it gives your body that extra bit of energy that it needs to push past a training plateau. And if your goal is just performance in the gym and not fat loss, then I would definitely suggest you consider increasing food. I mean, look at the strongest men and women in the world. They are strong because they eat. All of the food they eat is used for strength and energy in the gym. Sure, they have more body fat on them, but body fat is your body's extra energy stores. Anyway, I don't think there are a ton of power lifters listening to this podcast. So I'm going to move on and talk about a fat loss plateau now. Similarly to a training plateau, the first question you need to ask yourself is, how long has your progress truly been at a halt for? Women especially need to ask themselves this question because our menstrual cycle can really cause fluctuations in the scale sometimes. And not just during the week of our period, but a lot of times during ovulation too, which is one of many reasons why I highly suggest weighing in daily and looking at scale trends and averages rather than just weighing in at the same time of day or on the same day each week. Even during a very successful fat loss phase, It is not uncommon for there to be days and even weeks where the scale does not budge. But if it's been like 3 weeks and you have been adherent to your plan and you still haven't seen any progress, then we'll want to look at some of the other factors. The first thing I suggest taking into consideration is how honest are you actually being with yourself? Are you really being adherent to your plan? Or are you taking extra bites of your kids' food? Sneaking a few extra grams of peanut butter into your oatmeal? Or are you eyeballing portions rather than weighing them out? If you aren't being honest and accurate about the amount of food you are truly taking in, do that first. And I would bet that things will start moving in the right direction again. Along these same lines would be limiting prepackaged foods and meals out. I don't care that Whole Foods sells delicious and nutritious meals that are ready for you to heat and eat. I don't care if you were mindful about ordering a nutrient dense meal at a restaurant that has all of their nutrition listed online for you to track. Are these better decisions than going out to eat at McDonald's? Yeah, absolutely. But nutrition labels and restaurants are allowed a 20% margin of error on their nutrition claims. So if your goal is fat loss and you've hit a plateau, that 20% margin of error can easily take you out of a deficit very quickly, too. But now let's say that you are someone who doesn't go out to eat much and you weigh out and cook all of your own food and you've still hit a plateau. Sometimes it's a simple matter of just reducing calories or macros a bit more to create more of a deficit. But something else that I would want to take into consideration is your food choices. Are you getting a lot of macros from more calorically dense foods? Or are you eating lots of fruits and veggies? There's something called the thermic effect of food, which is basically the amount of calories that your body expends to digest different foods. And if you're getting all of your fats from oil and all of your carbs from sugar, your body is actually taking in a decent amount more calories than it would be if you were getting those same fats from whole nuts or avocados, or those same carbs from berries or broccoli. I'd also ask if you're eating foods that actually digest well, or if you're including too much variety. Sometimes when we are deep in a fat loss phase, we need to simplify things a bit in order to keep digestion running smoothly. Because if digestion isn't great, fat loss isn't going to be great either. Things like stress and sleep quality can also play a huge role in progress. Because if we have chronically elevated levels of stress, our body is going to fight us trying to lose weight. Our body is going to cling to those extra fat stores because it is stressed and it only cares about survival, not whether or not we want to look good in a bikini this summer. And if we're not getting good quality sleep, our body doesn't get the chance it needs to essentially reset itself and regulate hormones, which is stressful on the body. And then our body is going to fight us trying to lose weight. If you've hit a plateau and you're not sleeping well, or you're stressed to the max, either physically or mentally, it might be time to ease off a bit. Sometimes just a refeed to give you a little bump in food can help to restore energy and lower stress to give you that extra boost that you need to keep progressing. Carbs are more specifically helpful when this is the case. Sometimes taking a deload and backing off at the gym, or even taking some full rest days, can help to bring stress levels down. And other times, terrible sleep or chronic stress can be an indication that it's time to completely back off and go into a reverse diet to give your body a real break. Being in a caloric deficit that is too steep or pursuing fat loss for too long is very stressful on the body. And just like how increasing food can help performance in the gym, it can also help to reduce stress levels, which can sometimes actually initiate fat loss again. Yes, sometimes eating more can actually help to promote fat loss to an extent, obviously. You can't go completely off the rails and eat nothing but pizza and cookies when you had previously been consuming nothing but chicken and veggies and expect things to go the way you want them to. But if you've been pushing super hard or pushing for a super long time, then I would say it might be to your benefit to increase your caloric intake gradually, because a fat loss phase should not last forever. Taking breaks here and there can definitely work in your favor. And if you've hit a plateau, it might be your body's way of telling you to take a fucking break. But maybe not, because there's still one other variable that we can look at: cardio. How much cardio are you doing? How frequently are you doing cardio? And at what intensity are you doing your cardio? If you're doing an hour a day of moderate or high intensity cardio 5 or 6 days per week, I'd say it's time to back the fuck off, kind of like a deload or a reverse diet. Backing off of cardio can help to reduce the physical stress that you're putting on your body and possibly work to promote fat loss again. But if you're only doing 15 minutes, 3 days per week of low intensity cardio, you could try increasing to 15 minutes, 4 days per week, or bump it up to 18 minutes and stay with 3 days per week, or try cranking up the intensity a little bit. If you've been doing stairs at level 5, try going to level 6, but don't increase your cardio too quickly. The general rule of thumb that I try to follow when assigning cardio to my clients is to increase one of those three: frequency, duration, or intensity by just like 20% or so. Sometimes, if they really need to push, I might increase more than one of those, but that's usually only if we're trying to really push hard, like for a competition or something. Another strategy would be to just straight up change the type of cardio you're doing. If you're a runner and you're training for a marathon, you don't want to get on the bike or stairs because that's not going to help you run your marathon. But if your goal is fat loss, then you don't want to get too good at any form of cardio because your body will eventually stop responding to it. By switching from an incline walk to the stairs or the bike or something, you've created a new stimulus. And sometimes just that little shock to the body can be what you need to get things moving along again. Lastly, I would also advise you to take a look at your daily steps. Because when you're training hard, doing lots of cardio, and eating in a deficit, your body is going to do everything it can to preserve what little energy it has left. And you are going to subconsciously become lazier. So, by monitoring your daily steps, you can at least try to keep the calories that you expend outside of training and your cardio fairly equivalent, which can help to maintain your caloric deficit. Plateaus are something I am very familiar with, and I have helped countless people break past them, even when they thought it was impossible. Sometimes it does require a bit of trust on their part because they want to lose body fat. And I might sit here telling them that they need to take time off and eat more food. And they think I'm nuts until all of a sudden they start to feel and look better. But other times it's a matter of me telling them to get their shit together and start weighing their damn food and pushing harder in the gym. Either way, I'm always going to tell my clients what they need to hear, even if it's not necessarily what they want to hear. And if that sounds like the kind of coach that you need in your life, then I would love to help you out. All you've got to do is click the link in the show notes to apply to work with me. And if you've already got a coach, but you loved this episode, I would really appreciate it if you gave Treadmill Talks a follow or even a rating or a review. Those little gestures make a huge impact on getting this podcast bumped up higher in search results and on suggested channels. You could also take a screenshot to share to your social media or send to a friend who might like this episode. And if you tag me, I'm going to give you a shout out right back. Nonetheless, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me today. I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Treadmill Talks. If this episode taught you something, lit a fire under your ass, or at least helped you forget how long you've been walking in place, please leave a review or take a screenshot to share on your social media. Don't forget to tag me at Shannon Maves so I can give you some love right back. And thanks again for listening to my Treadmill Talk.